Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Sovereign Gaming in Life Sims, the YouTube channel where I build worlds, lots, and share my thoughts on video games in the life simulation gaming space. Now, we are indeed back in my SimCity world. We are continuing the build out of my House of Blue Leaves lot, which takes a lot of inspiration from Kill Bill Volume 1's House of Blue Leaves, of course. And yes, this intro is kind of feeling a little rushed just because we just really jump right into the action here, and I've got a pretty action-packed episode here if you are one that enjoys these kind of speed builds. Now, the reason why I say that is because I had a lot of fun actually doing the interior design of this. Again, like I mentioned before, Kill Bill Volume 1's House of Blue Leaves part of the film was a huge inspiration for this particular lot, both in terms of the vision I wish to achieve in the Far East Square neighborhood, and also just as something to just kind of break me out of my mold. I haven't done a one-on-one movie reference in one of my builds before, and this is really my first time kind of attempting at it. I've also got another reference as well within this build, but I'll speak a little more on it later. But yeah, I had a lot of fun collecting different reference points for the interior design just to try to make it emulate the House of Blue Leaves as you would see within the Kill Bill Volume 1 movie as best as I can with the objects and resources that I have access to within The Sims 3. So yeah, this was a lot of fun to actually start with the designs on, and I am very excited to share this part with you because there were some certain points where there actually wasn't a reference, and so I had to improvise a little bit and actually stretch my creative muscles just a tiny bit. Now, the reason why that part will be kind of fun to actually decorate and showcase to you guys is because I wasn't really limited by the references. Like I explained in the first part of this speed build, I was using a traditional Japanese tower as a reference for the exterior, whereas the interior and for, major parts of this lot, I am using that Kill Bill House of Blue Leaves reference for this very lot. So there were certain points where I allowed myself to have complete creative freedom with the design of the lot, and I think that it does pay off. Yeah, I think it does pay off. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm doing better not to over criticize my own work here, but yeah, I really enjoyed the way that all of this really turned out, and I think that you guys are going to really enjoy it as well and enjoy the vision. In Kill Bill Volume 1, there was a long shot that followed one of the characters that was walking from Lucy Lou all the way to the bathroom and all of that, and it was a really long shot that included some overhead shots in here and there, and that's where a lot of the layout came to be when it came to actually designing out this tower building and designing out where the bathrooms and the kitchen was going to actually be located within this particular lot. So I tried to stay true to the movie in terms of the layout for that particular shot. I had to watch that shot over and over a lot of times, unfortunately, which did really lead to a lot of time and research being dedicated to getting these references right. But even though the layout really matches with the kitchen in relation to the bathrooms as best as I could do it, the color palette in the bathrooms also matches well, because in the bathroom shots, although I obviously don't have the same objects and the same items to actually make it match one for one, which is again why I call this particular build more inspired by the Kill Bill scenes, but I was able to match that color palette for those bathrooms. And, to my surprise, when I really took a deeper look into it, there were some greens, there were some pinks, and it really, created a unique bathroom, and I really like it. It was a little more moodier than what I normally go for in a bathroom with my previous community lot builds, and so I really allowed the reference to really speak to me, and then I just tried to match it as best as I could. And if I don't have the exact objects and items to do a one-for-one replica of it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to at least try to get the colors right. And so that, I felt, was something that I was able to achieve within those bathrooms. That and the layout of the kitchen and the bathrooms and how it relates to the dance floor and everything. So I was very happy with the way that all turned out. Speaking of which, the restaurant is an important part of the lot. As you would have seen in part 1 of the episode, I had placed some seating out near the dance floor. That's where the seating is located in the Kill Bill 1 movie, and so I made sure that that was also present there. However, that particular point really kind of goes to highlight how in the films this was more like a huge entertainment center, whereas in the Sims 3 game I'm also trying to make it like this huge entertainment anchor for the Far East Square neighborhood. And so with that said, I am no stranger to putting a restaurant in a club or a bar, and with the movie having dining options and dining areas where people would actually sit and eat and all that, I knew that I had to include that with this build as well. So I decided to continue on with that, and the restaurant objects that I am using is the ever so infamous business as usual bistro set, which is from the Sims 3 store. And if you've been following along for this channel, you know that I have this really hilarious relationship with it, because it was the one set that I downloaded that blocked me off from using the editing game mode, which led to me changing the trajectory of the SimCity project completely within one fell swoop. So I have this funny relationship with it, and whenever I'm adding in a restaurant, I'm always having to tell myself that yes, it was worth it. but yeah, anyways, I'm kind of getting ahead of my I'm kind of getting distracted there. The kitchen itself is not a one-for-one remake. I didn't feel like it was an important enough of a space that was featured in the film for me to do a one-for-one remake with. And what's kind of funny is that when they do that lawn shot and when they do some of those bird's eye view shots in the Kill Bill 1 movie, they actually do have a shot of the kitchen, which you never get to see again as a movie viewer, because there are no more scenes that really takes place in that area of the building. So it's like you hired all of these extras, these chef extras, I suppose. You had them cooking to only appear for 2 seconds in the film, which is a great testament to an eye for detail that the director Quentin Tarantino would have for such a shot, but also something that just really kind of makes it feel like a real place. And for me, for this particular lot build, I am thankful for, because it did really dictate the location of the kitchen itself and what the lead kitchen should look like. Outside of that, I used 3 of those business as usual bistro ovens, which is what you can use to hire chefs and all of that. I felt like you needed 3 of those because they have to walk quite a distance to actually deliver the meals to the different tables. So I felt that more chefs were absolutely necessary in that case. Now that I say it out loud, I'm not too sure if I've done enough testing to see if that is a smooth process for if it works out well to have 3 of those ovens and 3 chefs working at once, plus a restaurant that orders from different points in the from different parts of the lot. I haven't done any specific testing on whether or not that's feasible, or if it all just gets sent to one chef or not. I either don't have a good memory for that, or I just haven't tested it. So that might be something that I will note to myself in this recording to give a quick little test over if I haven't already. But yeah, I felt that it was necessary to include those 3 ovens for theoretically 3 chefs to actually be hired there. like I mentioned before, the research and the references really took a long time to like really gather the different shots from the films. Like I would watch clips on YouTube, and I even watched like the unrated version just for like different angles and stuff. And I would take like little screenshots here and there. I would like compile them together and, you know, get them sent everywhere so I could have them at the palm of my hand for when I was building out this lot. So yeah, the research and references really took a much longer time, which kind of added into the fact that this was a complicated build happening during a very busy time in my life outside of YouTubing, I suppose. So yeah, that just really added to it. It just added a layer of complexity to it that I knew going in, but I was also too stubborn not to like switch over to a different build. Anyways, I did create a hibachi nook because I do have the building mirror itself on the other end there. So I had that little room that just kind of stuck out there on the east side. That would be the south side of the building. I'm thinking of the orientation of the world. And yeah, on that south side of the building, there's a little room that just kind of stuck out. And so I just decided to make it like a hibachi nook. And I decided to just kind of make it this really cool place that you could go into and, you know, cook up some hibachi or whatnot using that premium content. Now, you can't have chefs that work the hibachi table, if I remember correctly. I didn't do like testing on that. It's so dumb because like I say that I test my worlds, and I really do. I make sure that the pathing and everything is clear, but now that I've like gone to do the audio recording, I'm like, I question myself whether I've actually tested it or not. It's been a while since I've actually finished the lot build and have gone to actually record the episode and edit the videos, so I do apologize there. But anyways, you can't have chefs that work the hibachi table, which is unfortunate because I would have loved to have been able to have that. But I've always like designed my community lots with the idea of business ownership in mind. So theoretically, you as the player, if you decided to purchase this lot with one of your households, you could have somebody just work the hibachi table the entire time. Now, I don't think that Sims are going to be ordering anything from the hibachi table just because it's not really premium content that pretty much works like that, but it's yeah, but it's certainly there for that experience if you so chose as the player to have that experience. Speaking of which, like the wall decor is very limited from what I have access to, and because I am very reluctant to download a lot of custom content out there, I decided to keep it limited once again to the store items and to specific store sets at that. So the limited wall deco does get a little repetitive here and there. Like I know I've used those kimonos over and over again so many times. Like I'm sure you guys are sick of them, and by the end of it I was just kind of recoloring them and, you know, trying to tell myself like these are different kimonos and whatnot. So yeah, limited wall deco might get on your nerves. They got on my nerves, and if you find that it's just like a little too repetitive, well, I do apologize. There's only so much your wallpaper can do, and I am a big believer in keeping things simple, and you know, you don't need to overload your walls with decor unless you're going for some sort of a maximalist feel, which was not the case that I was going for here. But anyways, the wall deco, decorations and all that just might get on your nerves, and I do apologize for that, but with the constraints that I was working with and trying to stay true to the movie vision itself, I felt that I was still making the right choices in what I was deciding to do, and I tried to like space things out so that they didn't seem so clustered and so overwhelmingly similar in certain areas. The dance floor was actually a lot trickier to get right than what I was anticipating, and it was a lot trickier than I was really willing to admit while I was in the process of this. And the reason being for that is because I had to get the dance floor exactly centered, because it does dictate the layout of the rest of the main floor, which is obviously the number one spot that eyes are going to be laid upon and the number one focal point of the entire lot itself when players actually go to the inside of the structure. It really dictates the layout for everything else, and I was kind of restricted in a way with the stair placement that I had made to get up on top of that, like foundation for the raised garden level and all of that. So there was that at play, which did make the dance floor a lot trickier than what, than I cared to admit at the time that I was actually doing the design. Now, the thing about that is I went back to this lot and I actually added in a second set of stairs later on. And the reason why I actually ended up adding in that second set of stairs on the other side of the balcony is because because it's more movie accurate first and foremost, but also I was thinking about fire safety and all of that. And I guess that might be something that is not really necessarily needed to be considered when doing these kind of Sims builds here, but it was something that was at the back of my mind and I just kind of needed to put it at rest. So I ended up adding in a second set of stairs and you'll see that later on in this video, and that was really, those were the two reasons why I had to add in that second set of stairs. Now, the problem with this setup is that the stage is off center, and unfortunately by the end of the video it will remain off center because after I add in the second set of stairs I had to change the stage, and when you change the stage you pretty much have to change nearly everything else to try and make the stage, or sorry, not the stage, but the dance floor seem the center focal point of the entire room. And the only thing that I really need to change is just the placement of the kimono wall art that was displayed on that wall, and I think I should be okay. But yeah, by the end of the episode, the stage is still going to look a little off center, but by the time that this episode gets aired to you guys, that's going to be fixed within the upload link. And yes, at the time that this episode is airing, the upload link will be available. Again, you can check out the description box for that upload link for this very lot if you would like to download it in your own game. But yeah, stage will be off center. Unfortunately, even during the filming of this, I just really never realized it. And I guess I was just like so sick of doing this lot that I was just ready to kind of sign off on it, mistakes or not. But yeah, it'll be changed and it'll be edited and adjusted so that when you guys go to download it, you don't have to worry about there being like an off-center stage. I also had to cheat quite a bit for the lighting, and that's because this dance floor, well, the dance floor portion and also parts of the bathroom, but mostly the dance floor had a like, it doesn't have a ceiling to it on that second level, like it's all open air. And so I find that when you have larger lights that are placed on the second level, the lighting actually doesn't really filter through to that first level very accurately yeah, it doesn't filter through to that first floor very accurately at all, if I'm going to be honest. And so I had to use those light objects that you get from the debug mode. I'm always a little reluctant to use them, but when it comes to instances like this, I'm certainly getting a lot more comfortable in just kind of, figuring out that the game isn't perfect at all, and that sometimes I just need to make sure that everything is well lit. Lighting is super important to me, like in all of my lots. I'm not too sure if you guys have kind of realized this, but lighting can change your colors completely, and it is something that I hold very important. But more importantly than ever, my lighting in my lots, I like to have them actually make sense. So if I'm going to be placing one of those light objects from the debug mode, I want to make sure that there is a source of light that would illuminate downwards, for example. But yeah, that's why I rarely use it, is because if I can actually light it properly using the actual objects, then I'm going to actually choose to do so in such a fashion. So yeah, lighting, I had to cheat just a little bit for this lot, and it's, again, like I said, even though I'm a little reluctant, I was completely fine with it in this case because it made complete and total sense. The bar that I added on the main floor here is really, again, more like a tribute to the actual Kill Bill set for the House of Blue Leaves. It wasn't ever, like, this lot was never ever supposed to be like a one-for-one recreation. It's just impossible for me to do that with the objects and items that we have on hand and with the wallpapers and all of that. And you know, I'm not about to go on some huge custom content like download spree just to get a bunch of objects that I'm really only going to use once, which there is nothing wrong to doing that if there is something that you are very passionate about. I know that I have done that myself, but for this lot, I really felt like I was able to capture the the reference and the movie magic, I suppose, within this lot build with the objects that I had on hand, which is some of those store content, those store sets, excuse me, and with a lot of the world adventures objects. So the bar was, again, more so a tribute to the Kill Bill House of Blue Leaves scene, where you see Uma Thurman's character just kind of sitting at the bar and just kind of, you know, spying on Lucy Liu and her gang and all of that. And yeah, although the form of the bar is more accurate than the color palette, for example, and more accurate than the actual one-for-one decor, I felt that just at least capturing the form of the bar was going to be good enough for this particular lot build. And I even added in another mixology station just right beside it, if I remember that correctly. So you have a couple of bartenders that will be serving drinks and all of that at this bar. Again, like I mentioned before, like, you can take your Sims to this particular lot and you can have a lot of different experiences with it. So you can have the that dance club night club experience if you really want. You can take them here just to even eat out if you so chose to, or you can take them to do some of the gambling and all of that, and I'll explain those gambling rooms and all of that in just a bit here. But an elephant in the room here, actually, I should probably mention regarding the stage. I actually didn't place any instruments on that stage, and that's because I really don't like the game mechanics from Late Night when it comes to starting your own band and playing your music at other like community lots and all that. I don't think that the system works very well, and I would even criticize it as being a broken system within the Late Night expansion pack, which never got fixed. And, you know, it also fuels my own little conspiracy theory that Late Night and Showtime were supposed to be one expansion pack, but we're not going to go there today. But yeah, the stage was something that I just kind of wanted to include as part of the set, more as a tribute to the actual House of Blue Leaves set from Kill Bill, as opposed to making it an actually functioning game mechanic. And I've purposely avoided any kind of like late night bans from playing within the SimCity world, just because I overall just don't think that they function right. And you know, that kind of also works in parallel to my own feelings towards like the actual apartment lot classification and the roommate system within the Sims 3 franchise, and that it just doesn't work right. So because I don't like the way it works, it's not going to be something that I actually design lots and build lots for. So I do apologize if that is a gameplay mechanic that you do enjoy, but the thing that really annoys me for the late night bans is that you'll have Sims from the lowest of skill levels going to play at these bands, and usually they're just playing like the one instrument, and it cancels out the music for everywhere, and it just, you know, it's just not a good time. The only exception to this was having an actual pianist play, and they are an NPC that actually shows up to play the piano properly, and that's why I included an instrument in the Champagne's Lounge, is because a viewer actually left a comment on there just saying that the pianist actually does show up and play, and it does actually sound nice. Whereas if I left the guitar and the bass on here and everything, it would just be a lot of low skilled Sims just trying to give their hand at it, and it just really would kill the vibe. So I built the stage there as that tribute to the Kill Bill Volume 1 set, and it was, you know, a key part of the scene. It really helped to set the tone. In fact, it was done by the band, I believe they're called the 567-8s, and you know, their songs have been playing on a lot of commercials and all of that, like for Vonage, if I remember correctly. with their song being used for that series of commercials there. Hopefully, I'm hoping, like, I haven't done any research into like what they agreed to and all that, but I'm hope that they made like a ton of money doing that, because it was on a lot of commercials. I hope nothing but the best for those ladies. But yeah, they like went hard in the Kill Bill 1 movie, and I felt like it would be wrong if I didn't at least, you know, put the stage there just to kind of, you know, pay tribute to all of that. If I had it my way, and if The Sims 3 allowed it, I would actually make this building a true mixed use building, maybe putting in like some offices and office spaces on the upper floors. But because I don't have that capability here, and I'm not going to be talking too much about like what if scenarios here, I am going to be making the upper floors actually hidden rooms. But with that said, when it came to the design of the second floor, which was the only other floor that I was really going to give public access to, the layout for the most part actually does stay the same. When referencing the House of Blue Leaves from Kill Bill, I noticed that there were some of these sliding doors like down a hallway, and yeah, I was really going to lean into that, and I really wanted to embrace this version of the House of Blue Leaves as a true entertainment center. Like I mentioned before, like you can take your Sims here several times and get completely different experiences out of it. So I really wanted to just kind of I just really wanted to build on to that kind of an idea here, because this is a much larger lot than what I would normally make for a standalone bar or a club. And even though this is classified as a fusion lounge, I really wanted to lean into the fact that this is really more like an entertainment center. So with that said, the layout for the most part stays the same, and what you guys are going to be seeing for the decor of the second floor is just me trying to feel my way through what could be offered on that second floor. And to be truthfully honest with you guys, to be completely honest, I should say, I was very stumped in the beginning of the design for that second floor. Like, I knew what I wanted to offer sim players, which was, you know, the bubble blowing machine, of course, which is from the late night expansion pack, and then also the different gambling stations. So like there's a roulette table, a blackjack table, and a poker table. I really wanted to offer those experiences, plus I wanted to put in some karaoke, and also like more like a private bar as well, like more of like a cigar room kind of feel going on there. And the biggest problem with this is that this is never something that was explored in the movie, so there was really no reference. And I guess this just really speaks to the fact that I was following the references for both the exterior, like in those traditional Japanese structures, and then also for the interior for the Kill Bill Volume 1 House of Blue Leaves set, that, you know, when it came to actually striking it out on my own and like figuring out my own creative interpretations of what this space could offer, I was a little bit lost, probably just because I was so out of practice from doing that. And it doesn't help that I haven't played The Sims in a very long time by the time I got to doing the second floor. But anyways, I was really stuck, and I really wanted to lean into the House of Blue Leaves name itself. And it's something that's always kind of bothered me in the Kill Bill films, is that the place where, you know, Uma Thurman is killing all of the henchmen and stuff, and then she eventually faces Lucy Liu's character, like, it's in a place called the House of Blue Leaves, but there is ne'er a blue leaf to be found in that establishment. In fact, it is mostly red. Like, the hallway shots are all red. There's a lot of red in just in the main dance floor area. Like, there's a lot of red to it. So it always perplexed me why they called it the House of Blue Leaves. And, you know, that's the approach, and that was just like the starting point where I really wanted to just kind of launch from, is just, how do I justify the name for this lot that is already so very red in its nature? So I make some karaoke rooms. I kind of made them pink because I thought I was doing something. I really wasn't. It looked like crap, and it was part of the creative process where I was just very stumped with. And for this particular build, I was not going to accept anything that wasn't, great. It doesn't have to be, perfect. After all, perfect is the enemy of done, but it had to be something great. And even though, like, I think that my Goth Manor build was such a masterpiece in every single corner, I knew that every corner in this particular structure wasn't going to be that masterpiece. I just knew that this was going to be like a really great build. And so I had to actually walk away from doing that second floor for at least a couple of weeks. At the time, I think I was going through a bunch of midterms and I had a bunch of projects due, like some really hardcore projects. And I just needed to come back with a fresh perspective. Hence why you'll see me kind of experiment with this blue leaf pattern, which actually does make its way into the cigar room, so to speak, the private cigar room. And yeah, I just kind of started playing off of this like moody, like dark blue kind of feel going on. The floors are actually from Roaring Heights, if I remember correctly. They're either from Late Night and Roaring Heights or just from Roaring Heights, but definitely one of them is from Roaring Heights at the very least. And again, like I mentioned, it contrasts the wood floors that we have been using for the first and second floor to like give people access to it, but then it just sets an entirely different mood, and it kind of makes these spaces a lot more private, which is what I was going for, because I really wanted to kind of emulate within this build that even though it is an entertainment center, you can rent out these rooms and they can actually be private parties. And maybe there is maybe the way that this lot would function in real life is that you and a group of friends or a group of whatever would go in, either eat at the restaurant, dance on the dance floor, whatever, but you could also book rooms for certain activities, such as booking off a karaoke room. So I really wanted to offer all of those experiences there while also justifying the name House of Blue Leaves, and I think I was able to do that successfully. Now, I would be totally open to like continuing a similar color scheme like this into other like moodier bars and all of that, but I'll just kind of see how that all pans out, because even though I like the color palette that I used a lot, and I really liked a lot of the 20s and I guess 30s, 1930s and 1920s stuff that I was using for its inspiration, but although I really like those, like I could see myself using it again, except outside of a Chinese/Japanese context, maybe in a different neighborhood. Who knows? We'll see. I haven't got official plans to actually reuse this and recycle this color palette elsewhere, but I'm quite open to it. Speaking of which, like the Roaring Heights tiles and all that, like the Roaring Heights Sims 3 world is one of the worlds that I think is absolutely going, that's absolutely great for its value. It gives you a lot. It gives you a lot of walls. It gives you a lot of floors. And I am in no way, shape, or form like trying to promote EA or anything, because, well, they've kind of dug their own grave in a lot of ways, but we are not discussing that today. But yeah, the Roaring Heights world, if you were to pick up a world, that would be the one that I would highly recommend. And I would recommend just going for the most expensive version of that, which is the gold version, I think, which comes with the roller coaster lot and all of the premium content, because it just comes with a lot of objects, a lot of really useful objects, and I think that players from all playstyles would find a lot of use for what you get from Roaring Heights, and that includes the clothes too, I suppose. When designing out I guess I'm gonna just call it the cigar room, in truth, like I contemplated even like making it some sort of a VIP room, but I didn't want to add any more, I didn't want to add any bouncers to this lot. It just didn't feel right to me. It felt like it was gonna kind of interrupt the vibe a little bit. But anyways, when I was designing out the cigar room, it was really nice. like the color scheme that I ended up going for the second floor and for all the private rooms and all that really worked well for absolutely everything. It's just that when I got to the cigar room, I kind of had more space than I knew what to do with. And aside from like placing another mixology station on there and giving a place to, I don't know, to like sit, eat, and drink and whatnot, I was just kind of out of ideas, and I once again had to take a step back. I had to walk away from this project for a little while before coming back to it. And that's really the common theme throughout this whole build, is that I have had to like step away from it a couple of times, honestly, in order to like come back with a fresh mind and a fresh set of ideas. Anyways, what I ended up doing with the cigar room is I actually ended up blocking it off, as opposed to like having another karaoke station out there. At that point, I thought that the karaoke was just getting to be a little too much, and I felt that just 2 private karaoke rooms was good enough. But anyways, I decided to cut the cigar room off just a little bit. And what I wanted to do, and again, I'm using this word really loosely, is make another Kill Bill reference. And so I decided to recreate the dinner scene that Lucy Liu had with the other like Yakuza mob bosses, and where she like jumps on the table and like cuts off one of their heads. Spoilers, by the way. And by the way, like, Kill Bill is such a violent movie. I don't think I ever mentioned that in either this part or the last part. So if you are sensitive to violence and all that, this might not be the movie for you. But the sets are really great. And so I decided to like recreate that particular dinner scene. Now, once again, I don't have the exact objects. I couldn't get like a table that had some inbuilt like lighting on its borders and stuff like that, so I just decided to make do with what I had. So I did have some like some of those floor lights, so I decided to surround it with that. I felt it was a good compromise there. And for the color scheme, I just continued off with those dark moody blues into that room, which again isn't necessarily the color scheme that the scene with Lucy Liu really had. I think it used more charcoals and more blacks, but because I wanted it to make sense in this context, I decided to just make it blue. Again, this is one of those cases where I was taking a hell of a creative liberty here, just kind of making tribute to that scene, I suppose, as opposed to recreating it. And so this room absolutely serves the purpose of just being a nice piece of set dressing that just pays tribute to the Kill Bill movie. So it serves no purpose, is really what I'm trying to say here. I mean, I guess if you grabbed a snack from the mixology station, maybe your sim would just kind of like waltz over there to like eat the snack. It doesn't matter. It's there as set dressing. It was the only idea that I had when I came back to this, and I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I just tried to like pay tribute to that particular scene? And so that was really the only idea that I had. If you guys have better ideas, feel free to sound off in the comment section below, because I was really running out of things to offer for Sims to do that would make sense in the context of this lot. Like, already they have opportunities to gamble with all of the different gambling stations there. They have opportunities to blow bubbles, I suppose, because that's a whole thing in The Sims 3. And they have an opportunity to, you know, to perform karaoke in the private rooms. And of course, like with late night, you have the whole like mixology and the dancing and the drinking and this and that. And so I was just kind of running out of things to offer Sims that would make sense in this context. For example, I would never put a juice pond table. We know what that is, but I would never put a juice pond table in this particular lot because to me it doesn't fit the theme. It was something that I placed in All Stars and Cowboys way back when, and that's because it did fit the location. It fit the actual site and the lot classification being a sports bar. So there would be different activities offered at different places, and I don't want every place to have the same things for your Sims to do at each location. So there was that also was something that I took into consideration. But if you have a suggestion, that comment section is open, and I keep it open for this very purpose. There was something else that I wanted to mention as well. Oh yes, the music. So in The Sims 3, like in the World Adventures expansion pack, we get more song genres, and one of the genres is actually like Chinese music. Now, I don't know about you guys, but the Chinese music in the World Adventures expansion pack is definitely like not something that you would be busting a move at. Like, not in the same sense that they were really going hard in the Kill Bill scene when they were all like dancing on the dance floor during that lawn shot or whatever. Like, they were going hard. And I'm like, the Chinese music really wouldn't really kind of inspire those kind of movements. So it just kind of felt out of place for the vibe that I was going for. So I actually decided to set the speakers so that they had the rockabilly, I believe it's called, music genre playing. It actually came with the okay, I could be wrong on this, but I believe it came with the Fast Lane Stuff Pack from The Sims 3. It actually gave us a new genre of music, which was kind of unique in that kind of sense. And so I decided to have that blare on the speakers, so to speak, just because it felt more true to the actual lot, and also it had a similar sound to what the 5, 6, 7, 8s were playing in the actual Kill Bill film. So I chose the music really more so based on what they were playing as opposed to anything else. And the Chinese music has its time and place, and I'm sure that I will be using that in future builds within the Far East neighborhood. But you know, for the time being, like, it just didn't suit this lot, so I just decided not to use it. And that again is another reason why I've already mentioned about bands and everything in late night. I'm not going to rehash that conversation, but I would rather listen to the rockabilly music than a sim with like maybe one skill point to their name trying to rock out to like trying to play the bass. And it's like, no thank you, I don't need that, and I don't think that my players would really want that either. So but yeah, the dining room is absolute set dressing. Nothing really important to it other than it's just purely there as a tribute to the Kill Bill movies. I eventually go on to make the tea room, I guess. Now there's one scene in, again, like Kill Bill, where Lucy Liu's character is kind of hanging out with her henchmen in this room, and they're all like sitting on the floor and stuff. And unfortunately, like, of course, we don't really have those capabilities in The Sims 3, really, to like sit on the floor and just kind of hang out and all that. Like, I know it's more traditionally Japanese in that kind of a setting, and we just don't have access to that in The Sims 3. So I decided to just kind of like make do with what we got here. So I made it into a tea room. I threw in the tea set, which is again from the Sims 3 store, just to again add in another activity that, you know, your Sims could choose to do. If you wanted to send them there for afternoon tea or whatever, you've got a tea room there. Normally I wouldn't necessarily look to make that activity something to be offered at a lounge, for example, but because I was trying to make this as true to the film as I possibly could, I decided to just make it into a tea room, and just to, you know, decorate it very simply and to make it just as wonderful as I could possibly be, that I could possibly make it, in hopes that you guys would actually like it and tolerate it. So please like it. Okay, so let's talk a little more about the tea room. I kept it simple. In the films, if I remember correctly, it had a lot of lighter colors to it, so I tried to keep the color scheme at least the same. Like, if I can't get the objects right, then I'm at least going to make an attempt to the color. And that's kind of been my theme throughout this. Like, if I couldn't get the form right, I would try to make the color right. If I couldn't get the color right, then I would at least make the form and the dimensions correct. That was exactly actually my approach to this, is that if I couldn't hit the target on something, at least I could get close in something else. And if I needed to take like creative liberties, at least those creative liberties would somewhat make sense. And in this case, I've got the name of the lot to defend myself for all the creative liberties I have taken with those blue rooms. So I'm good on that front. But anyways, within the tea room, I've never really had any good luck with finding the right object for like to convey tatami floors accurately. So I really struggled trying to find the right object for that, or sorry, the right rug for that matter. And it was a struggle, and I still kind of don't like it. Like, there are some imperfections. I'm not gonna point them out exactly to you, but there are imperfections with the tatami floor within the tea room that I am still not fond of to this day. And I just feel like that there has to be a better way to convey tatami floor without using the rugs. And again, that's why this comment section is open, you guys, because if you've got a suggestion, it is certainly going to make its way into the editing episode for the Far East Square neighborhood whenever I get around to it, because right now that tatami floor looks passable. If you like squint and use your imagination a little bit, it looks passable, but I feel like there's just like a better solution out there, and I didn't think of it at the time, and I'm not even like close to like thinking of what that better way to convey a tatami floor would be, outside of like maybe experimenting with some rugs and carpets. But even then, I tried that as well, and I'm not too sure if I even filmed that here, but I did try several different methods for trying to accurately convey a tatami floor. Anyways, this is about the point in the build where I decided that I needed to have that second staircase. Again, it's more movie accurate first and foremost, but also I was thinking of fire safety for these Sims, which, you know, I'm gonna blame my studies for. I am studying architecture at this time, and it's just like, you know, I think about fire escapes and this and that, and it's just like great knowledge to have, but then when it comes up in my work, I just gotta kind of laugh at myself, because even though fires will always appear in The Sims 3 and in any Sims franchise when you least expect it, you never really plan for like fire routes, fire escapes, and like firewalls and what have you. So that is definitely something that I decided to take into consideration. For whatever reason, I decided to take into consideration, but more importantly, it was true to the film. So I had to adjust that. But what that adjustment led into was, it led into a bunch of other adjustments with the addition of that second staircase, and you're going to kind of see that cascade throughout the rest of this build. For one, I had to adjust the entrance into the main dance floor, because with the addition of the second stairs, it made the center focal point, it changed the center focal point. And at first I thought I could get away with it by not changing the dance floor, but then, you know, I have to be honest with you, I left this build, I saved it, and then I like slept and went to bed, and I could not think of anything else but the fact that I needed to adjust the dance floor so that it is at least centered. So I had to recenter that damn dance floor for like the third time at this point. And again, like that dance floor was something that I wasn't expecting to be a challenge in this build. I was expecting myself to run into a lot of grief with getting that upper garden level that the tea room exits out onto, but I digress. But yeah, that second staircase really just kind of added problems with the centering of the rest of the interior. And even though like the entrance I don't think it'll ever be centered, and with the fact that I like having the pergola hat structure, I suppose, sit on top of it, because it does look like an entrance, and it's true to the film, but because that will never be centered just based on the layout of this, and because I'm being a little stubborn and want to keep that a little more movie accurate, it's just like, there are certain things about this lot that the interior, like specifically the dance floor, will never be completely, totally centered, which just bothers the living hell out of me in some ways, but in other ways, you know, I can defend it with the same energy, just kind of telling myself that it's actually movie accurate and all of that. Well, movie accurate to have the pergola structure on top of that main entrance. But anyways, the only mistake that I really left here was not reorganizing those kimono wall pieces on the stage there. That's the only thing that I really kind of made a mistake with when I went to leave the slot and to finish it and to, you know, kind of move on from there. So, you know, by the time this gets uploaded to YouTube and by the time I get it uploaded to the Sims File ShareNet website, those edits will be made, those will be fixed. So that is something that I am happy to guarantee that by the time you watch this video, that's going to be fixed. At the very least. And I'm just talking about the kimonos. I'm not fixing the entrance because I am defending that that is movie accurate. Unless I'm convinced otherwise. I don't know, man. But yeah, this dance floor was giving me grief whereas it really shouldn't, because I'm really good at centering stuff. Anyways, we gotta move on here. So in Kill Bill Volume 1, after Uma Thurman's character fights all of the henchmen in the House of Blue Leaves, I've been mentioning this like since the beginning of the first part of this speed build, but she goes up a set of stairs, she goes through this tea room, and then she opens the doors and suddenly she's outside, which kind of as I've explained before, means that I had to have like an upper level that actually exited to the outdoors. So that was really the first note of complication in terms of getting the speed build all together, and something that actually turned out to be a lot easier than I thought, whereas that damn dance floor was giving me a lot of grief and still is in some ways. But anyways, when she opens up to the outdoor garden, Lucy Lou's character is there waiting for her pretty much, and they are ready to battle it out with an epic sword duel. And it's snowing, it's beautiful, and no, I didn't get any winter shots for this for this speed build. Maybe I will someday in the future, but anyways, all the shots take place in summer for the final tour and everything. But yeah, she's out there in the outdoors. It's a beautiful garden and all that. And honestly, like, landscaping isn't exactly my strong suit, especially with the objects that we have access to. And I don't mean to complain about the repertoire of landscaping objects that we get access to in The Sims 3, but honestly, like, I just don't think they just don't really inspire me that much. Like, I feel like I'm always using the same things over and over again. And when I went about like organizing and designing the landscaping for this outdoor Japanese garden, essentially, I just kind of felt like there weren't a whole lot of options. Like, sure, I put in a cherry blossom tree just in the middle, just for good measure, but it was just like, it just didn't feel Japanese enough for me. And in the corner, like, Lucy Lou's character is like on a hill, and she like comes down this hill or whatever, and it's like really a gorgeous, stunning scene. And it's like filmed in the middle, well, not in the middle of winter, because they use soap on the set as opposed to actual snow, but you know, the setting is in winter and it's just absolutely gorgeous. It also, like, you know, the Kill Bill Volume 1 and the Volume 2 movies, they pay a lot of tribute to old kung fu movies and all that. So it was paying tribute to, I believe the older film was called like Lady Blood Snow or something like that. But anyways, I just feel like I just didn't do the outdoor garden part justice. Sure, there's a pond in there, and I kind of make do with what I could. I placed some rocks around it, and you'll see as you see me try to work up the pond that it was kind of giving me grief, because if I would dig too deep, it would suddenly disappear. And that's kind of the trade-off that you get for working with terrains that are at completely different heights, is that sometimes when you use the pond tool, it doesn't like to, you know, suddenly it'll try to recognize that the lower terrain is where the pond needs to start and that it needs to go deeper. I'm making a guess as to how the game is thinking. I really don't know, but I just knew that as soon as I did like an extra click here and there, suddenly the water would disappear, and that I really just didn't care for. So didn't care for that, but I did get the pond in, maybe not as the exact shape that I wanted, but I did get it in. So that's kind of what's counting here. In the beginning of this, like, because I had to use foundations to really surround and, wall off the change in foundation from this higher level to the lower level of terrain, there is unfortunately like no way to actually make retaining walls as we would understand them in The Sims 3. So instead you have to use foundations, which is like at least a block wide. And so the problem with that is just really figuring out a way to disguise those. And the way that I decided to just kind of make it, or the way that I decided to disguise the retaining walls, so to speak, or that little extra gap of space, is just that I wanted to place some daisies over it. I just wanted a landscape over it just to cover it. So there was really no effort on that one other than just using some daisy flowers that I never really used but provided the perfect amount of coverage, and it was at the right height. So I just used those all around the borders there, and just to like cover that foundation level. So that's exactly what I did. I just used those daisies to hide that foundation level, because otherwise it just doesn't really make sense. I changed the wallpaper for the inside walls here so that they are like a nice, like, I don't want to call them a mossy brick. I almost called it a moldy brick, and I was like, that's not right. But yeah, a mossy brick veneer was something that I decided to use just because it was a little more subtle, and I didn't feel like the red needed to continue in here because that color was never prevalent in the final battle between Lucy Liu and Uma Thurman's characters. So that's what I decided to do, is I decided to just kind of take my own creative interpretation there in a way. I didn't look too hard in the background, if I'm going to be honest with the references. But yeah, I interpreted it to have like a nice mossy brick veneer in the background that just wouldn't compete with the scenery that you would get upon entering the outdoor space here. Again, this is just a little bit more set dressing here. Now, the only issue with this lot is because I needed it to be symmetrical, I also had another outdoor space to really contend with. And for that one, I actually decided to use a really obscure video game reference for this one. And some of you are gonna like really laugh out loud here at this, but oh my God. Okay, back when the PlayStation 2 was around, you guys, there was a game called Enter the Matrix, and there was a scene, and like the graphics on it are like compared to like today's graphics, and like even compared to graphics of video games like at that time, they were kind of shitty, if I'm gonna be honest with you. Like looking back on it, yeah, they're kind of shitty. But anyways, hopefully I'm smart enough to put up a screenshot there. But there was this one level where you're playing as Ghost and you're facing Trinity in this beautiful sand garden, and I completely forget what those Zen gardens. It was a Zen garden. It was one of those places, and it was a really beautiful scene. It was a great level to like play through as a kid and everything. And so I just kind of made that other half a tribute to that particular video game level. So a very obscure reference that I decided to make here, but hey, it kind of worked out. And again, like these outdoor spaces are more so a little more set dressing just to stay true to the Kill Bill film. And I guess in this case, like, you know, getting an Enter the Matrix video game reference out of my system. So I guess that's the way that it kind of unfolded. Speaking of which, the partition that I used is actually a gate object on the other side, on the Lucy Liu side, I suppose. And because there is a partition in their final fight scene, I made sure to have a partition there. Again, with partitions and stuff, we really have a limited choice on them, but I used the one from I'm pretty sure it's from Roaring Heights or it's from Lucky Palms. I forget which one of the Sims 3 worlds it's from, but it looks concrete. Like its default skin is really like a rough concrete base, but I was able to recolor it, or sorry, I used Creative Style on it, obviously, and I made it wood, and it actually took really well to the wood. So kind of surprised me. It was at the right height. It had the right pattern on it because I didn't want to, I didn't like any of the folded partitions that I've got. I didn't like any of the partition deco objects because they were just too artsy. This was the right pattern, and the way that it took to with the Creative Style wood to it was something that really surprised me, and something I wanted to share with you guys, because if you have that object in the game, there's a lot more flexibility to it than what meets the eye. There was only one other mistake that I really made when finishing up this lot, and it was actually something that kind of surprised me, but I placed a hidden room marker in the roof. For some reason it would block Sims from entering, but I've removed that now. I've had to do a lot of troubleshooting for that, so that's removed. But if you guys are like placing a hidden room marker in a place that, you know, is more like an attic space, maybe don't do it. I don't know. Sims 3's got a mind of its own. In fact, all these Sims games have got like minds of their own, so take it as it may. Like, your mileage may vary, whatever those caveats are. But yeah, by the time I was finished this lot, I was very much done with it. I've got to be honest with you, like, this was a lot that was kind of hanging over my head like a guillotine for the last couple of months here. And it was a very complicated build that I needed specific references. And although I love the finished product, I stand by the finished product, and I think that it's actually a very great lot to have in your game. It was really a project to actually try to get this done while juggling my real life and, you know, trying to make good on my studies and all of that. So it was something that was a challenge in that kind of an aspect, just being a complicated build all on its own, plus with my other time constraints and time commitments. But anyways, I'm done with this slide. It is done. It functions perfectly well on its own, with those small edits, like with some of those kimonos on the stage. Like, don't worry, I'll get those fixed by the time you guys watch this video and have a chance to download it. Speaking of which, that download link is indeed in the description box. So if you want this lot, then feel free to download it from the Sims File ShareNet website. I've uploaded it as a Sims 3 package. No, I haven't loaded it up as that. It's one of those Sims 3 files where it launches your launcher. I forget what those files are called. You can tell that it's been a while since I've actually had a chance to play a video game. Okay, but with all of that said, in the next episode, we are going to go back to Blue Water Village. We're going to be doing another single family home there. I have a couple of ideas kind of kicking around, but I haven't even gone to even approach that single family home project quite yet, so I can't really tease much there. I'm just going to share with you that I'm looking forward to doing a simpler build, something that is a little more closer to my comfort zone in that kind of in an architectural perspective. But don't fret, because we will be back in the Far East Square neighborhood to continue building out and to continue approaching the challenges of working with a different architectural style. With all that said, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. If the tours aren't already playing, I'm sure that they are, but feel free to stick around for those if they aren't already playing. Thank you again for watching. Feel free to like this video, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. And with all that said, I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.